If you saw my video on racking posted earlier, you'll recognize this tank as a tank full of Sauvignon Blanc juice that has been racked off of the gross lees and returned back to the tank. And now we are going to start on the process of inoculation, or the start of fermentation. Here you'll see a pitcher full of that juice, which we will end up using as food for the yeast before it is actually pitched and tossed into the tank. If you've ever made bread from scratch, you'll kind of recognize this. This is 2 buckets of yeast that are being rehydrated and then tempered to be added back to the tanks to start fermentation. So in one bucket we have a yeast strain we've chosen for Albarino, and in the other for Sauvignon Blanc. Yeast for wine are not all the same. They impart flavor, aroma, and texture to wines. They have been developed from cultures in specific cellars around the world and then made in bulk. They're dry particles that we rehydrate with 105-degree water, just like you do for bread yeast. We want the yeast solution to be within 10 degrees centigrade of the temperature of the juice in the tanks. So we temper the yeast by adding small amounts of juice to the yeast buckets over time. That juice is full of sugar. It'll help kickstart the division of yeast as they eat those, and they eat that sugar. They will start to multiply and give us more and more yeast cells to work with as they get dropped into the larger larger tank that contains the juice. So this is what the yeast buckets look like before the first add of juice. So I'm just going to add a little bit of Albarino here, a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc here. Just give them a little mix here. So this lowers the temperature, getting it closer to the tank temperature, as well as adding a bunch of sugar. So the yeast can start eating that. We'll set a timer for 10 minutes and we'll come back and see what it looks like. So the first 10 minutes have passed. You can see how much CO2 has been produced by yeast starting to divide and the like. So we just add another bit of juice. Albarino there, Sauvignon Blanc here. Now let's knock this one down a little bit first. Probably going to have to get another larger bucket for this one. And we'll give it another 10 minutes. So I'm about to pitch yeast into the tank here. Left with just a little bit of foam from some remaining yeast, but what we'll see over the course of time now is we'll see a lot of bubbling and various things happening here in our container as the yeast start to grow, produce more yeast cells, bud, and create billions of yeast cells. They'll end up eating all the sugar that's in this tank and converting that to alcohol, CO2, and heat. And we'll let you know how things proceed over the course of the next couple of weeks. So a couple days after we pitched yeast in our Sauvignon Blanc, we get this kind of thick coating on top of the juice. And this is yeast propagating beginning active fermentation. And this will end up sort of dissipating as the wine gets closer and closer to being dry. We're probably at about 14 or 15 bricks at this point in time. We pitched the yeast, we were at 21 bricks, so things are moving along pretty well. And this is typically what a tank looks like as it is beginning fermentation. Here's video of our Albarino tank fermenting. You can see all the bubbles. CO2 is a byproduct of fermentation. Yeast eats sugar, and CO2 is one of the byproducts. You can see the bubbles, you can see the foaminess. This will continue as the wines go from 21 bricks or so down to 0 bricks or negative bricks, which would indicate dryness. You can also start, if we had smell-o-vision here, you'd be able to smell some of the really cool aromas that are being developed too.